I don't want to leave a legacy. I don't want my name on a bench or my photo in a frame or my stories told at some holiday table. I don't want children named after me or boxes of my old shirts kept just in case or anyone saying I'd be proud if I could see them now. I used to think that made me broken, like I was failing some test everyone else passed without trying. We're taught that the point of life is to leave something behind, a family, a reputation, a dent in the world. Like we're all supposed to spend our years carving initials into wet cement, desperate to be remembered after we're gone. But I don't feel that urge. I never have. The idea of being remembered doesn't comfort me. It exhausts me. It feels like another job I didn't sign up for, another expectation wrapped in guilt and ceremony. I don't want to be the story that gets softened over time until I'm someone I never was, kinder, wiser, more patient. I don't want to be reduced to a handful of photos and a few recycled phrases repeated out of obligation. I don't want a legacy. I want to vanish cleanly, not in bitterness, not in shame, just quietly, as if I never took up more space than I needed, as if I borrowed this life gently and returned it without damage. I know how that sounds. I know some people would call it sad or lonely or selfish, but to me, it feels like honesty. Not everyone wants to be a chapter in someone else's book. Some of us are tired of pretending we're supposed to matter that much. People assume that if you live a quiet life, it's because you were denied something. That if you choose not to chase meaning through legacy, it's because you never had the chance. But I had chances. I had a family, a job that paid the bills, weekends full of small rituals, lawn care, grocery runs, birthdays with too much cake. I had love in the form that most people recognize, someone who sat beside me through the years, who kept the calendar full, who filled the silences when I didn't know how. I had enough, more than enough. And still, I never once felt the desire to be remembered. I went to weddings where people raised glasses to the great men before us. I sat at funerals where stories were shaped like polished stones, smooth, perfect, exaggerated. I watched people cry over losses they didn't truly understand, moved more by the performance than the person. And I thought, is this what it's all for? To be summarized by others? To become something digestible, repeatable, easy to place in a sentence or two? That idea never comforted me. It made me want to disappear even more. Not because I hated my life. I didn't. But because I never saw the point in stretching it beyond its natural reach. When I'm gone, I want the air to close around me like water. No ripple, no trace. Not because I think I failed, but because I never believed presence needs to echo to have value. Some things are real only in the moment they exist, and that's enough. There's a kind of relief in knowing nothing I've done needs to be carried forward. No lessons to pass down, no traditions to preserve, no stories to rehearse for the next generation. I used to watch my friends obsess over it, writing down family trees, scanning old photographs, recording messages for when I'm gone, as if memory could be made permanent, as if being remembered made death softer. But I never felt the need to be kept alive in someone else's mind. The truth is, most legacies are burdens. People inherit more than names. They inherit expectations, comparisons, unresolved guilt. They're asked to carry feelings they didn't create, to perform reverence for someone they barely knew. I've seen it happen. Children pretending to admire a father they feared, spouses polishing the image of someone who left behind more silence than comfort. The dead become projects, and I don't want to be someone's project. I don't want to be curated into something I never was. I don't want to be remembered in the wrong way, or worse, remembered correctly and still held on to out of obligation. I want the people I've known to feel free when I go, not untethered, just unburdened. I want them to open the windows, let the light in, and know that nothing more is required. No shrine, no myth, just space to breathe. I think some people would hear this and assume I'm bitter, that I must have been unloved or unfulfilled to reject the idea of legacy so completely. But that's not it. I was loved in quiet ways. I was fulfilled in small ones. I had mornings where the coffee was just right, evenings where the silence between two people felt like peace, not distance. I've known calm, I've known steadiness, but none of it ever made me want to be remembered. That impulse to leave a mark, to plant something with your name on it, to echo. It always felt foreign to me, like a language I never learned. I've walked through cemeteries with neat rows of stones, each one etched with names, dates, a phrase meant to summarize a life. Beloved, missed, never forgotten, but they are forgotten. Most of them, even the ones with fresh flowers. And that doesn't scare me. It feels natural, honest. You live, and then you don't. The world doesn't need to carry your name to have carried your presence. I've had conversations that mattered, held hands that trembled, said things that only one person ever heard. That's enough. That's all it ever needed to be. I was here briefly, and I was real, briefly. I don't need more than that. Sometimes I think about what it would mean to be remembered, really remembered. Not in the polite, polished way people talk about the dead, but in the actual shape of who I was. Not just the good parts, not just the highlights. The full, unedited version. The silences, the missteps, the ways I pulled away when closeness was offered, the way I could vanish in a room without moving. I don't think most people would want to remember that version. We like our memories to be useful, comforting. We sand down the edges until the people we grieve become easier to love. And I've never wanted to be loved that way, through edits, through effort. If someone couldn't hold the full weight of me while I was alive, I don't want them carrying some softer version after I'm gone. That's not remembrance. That's preservation for the sake of comfort. And comfort has never been my goal. I lived my life quietly, not because I lacked volume, but because I didn't see value in adding to the noise. I never wanted a stage, never needed applause. I wanted moments, real ones, that didn't need to be documented to matter. The kind that don't look like anything from the outside. Sitting at a kitchen table, both of us holding mugs, neither speaking. A late evening drive where nothing was said, but the window was cracked just enough to let the wind in. The weight of a hand on your back when you're not sure you're okay, but you haven't admitted it yet. These are the things I value, and none of them can be passed down. You can't inherit a silence. You can't replay a glance. You can't teach someone how it felt to be seen, just once, without needing to explain yourself. That's what I mean when I say I don't want to leave anything behind. The things that mattered most in my life were not built to last. They were not meant to echo. They were meant to exist and end in the moment they were born. And I'm okay with that, more than okay. I find peace in that. Because I think the obsession with legacy is really just a fear of disappearing. A fear that our lives only mean something if they are witnessed and named and sculpted into permanence. But I don't believe that. I believe a life can be full and whole and good, even if it fades entirely once it's done. Like a song you hear through an open window. No name, no repeat, just that one passing moment, and then it's gone. And that's enough. There's a strange freedom in knowing that nothing I've done needs to survive me. Not my habits, not my preferences, not my opinions spoken in half-lit rooms. I think about that more often now, the way people cling to the idea of being carried forward, as if their worth depends on outliving their own body. They save letters, archive conversations, record videos with trembling voices so someone decades later can say, "This was them." But the truth is, most of those things get thrown away quietly, not out of cruelty, out of life moving on. Drawers get emptied, phones get reset, shelves get cleared by hands that love you but also need space for their own lives. And I don't resent that. It feels right. I've watched people drown under the weight of what their parents left behind. Unfinished projects, unspoken expectations, the heavy shadow of someone else's importance. I used to think that was just how families worked, that each generation was supposed to carry the residue of the one before it, like a relay race where the baton gets heavier with every hand that touches it. But I see it differently now. I think the kindest thing I can offer the world is to release it from the responsibility of holding me, to take up no more space than I occupy in the moment, to leave no boxes in attics, no emotional debts, no myth that someone feels obligated to uphold. I've spent most of my life trying not to inconvenience anyone, and maybe that instinct wasn't always healthy. But here, at the end of things, it finally feels like it has purpose. I don't want someone decades from now to stand in a room full of my things, wondering what to keep because throwing it out feels like betrayal. I don't want anyone sorting through my belongings and trying to decide which objects carry meaning. They don't. The meaning lived in the moment, not in the item. And the moment is gone. I think about conversations I had where I nodded instead of speaking, where I stepped back instead of stepping forward. Not out of fear, out of a sense that my voice wasn't needed, that my presence didn't require permanence. Some would call that detachment. Maybe it is. But it's also clarity. We pretend life is a grand narrative, a story with themes and arcs and something worth preserving at the end. It's not. It's a collection of days, some heavy, some light, and then it stops. The pressure to turn all that into something lasting always felt artificial to me, like dressing a simple truth in unnecessary ceremony. I don't need to be someone's inspiration. I don't need to be someone's loss. I don't even need to be someone's memory. I just want to pass through quietly, the way most things in nature do, here, then gone, without insisting on being immortalized. And maybe that's what people misunderstand. This isn't despair. I'm not rejecting legacy because I think my life lacked substance. I'm rejecting it because I know exactly what my life was made of. Small gestures, quiet routines, moments that mattered only because they happened once and never needed to happen again. Trying to stretch those things into permanence would cheapen them, turn them into something performative. I don't want my existence to become symbolic. I don't want anyone rewriting me into a better version so they can feel better about losing me. I want the truth of who I was, with all its gaps and stillness and unfinished pieces, to dissolve naturally without being curated or framed. Sometimes late at night I imagine the moment after I'm gone, the real moment, not the ceremonial one. The house finally empty, the air still, someone turning off the lights for the last time. And instead of dread, I feel a kind of softness, a loosening, as if the world exhales and rearranges itself effortlessly around the space I no longer occupy. No resistance, no shadow left behind demanding to be tended to, just the quiet closing of a chapter that never insisted on being read out loud. That's what I want. Not remembrance, not reverence, just release. A life that begins, unfolds, and ends without asking anyone to carry the weight of it afterward. A life that disappears the way footprints do, not because they were meaningless, but because they were never meant to stay. There's a thought I've carried for years, one I never said aloud because it sounded too stark, too final, even for me. I don't believe we owe the world a version of ourselves that lasts longer than our time in it. People talk about legacy as if it's a duty, as if the worst fate imaginable is to slip out of memory, to fade without leaving instructions, stories, artifacts that keep you anchored somewhere after you're gone. But fading doesn't frighten me. What frightens me is the idea of being held onto when I no longer exist, to give consent, to correct the stories, to shape how I'm understood. The dead can't defend themselves from being rewritten. They can't say, "That wasn't me," when someone creates a version that's easier to love or easier to judge. I've watched it happen. A man dies, and suddenly the rough edges of his personality are treated like charming quirks. A woman passes, and the family collectively agrees she was gentler than she ever actually was. Memories compress people into shapes they never lived in. And I don't want that. I don't want to become a softened myth or a sharpened warning. I don't want to be the distant figure someone uses to explain their own choices. He would have wanted this. She always believed that, when I'm not there to confirm or deny a word of it. I don't want ownership of my life to fall into the hands of people trying to make sense of theirs. And then there's the other side, the weight placed on those who survive. I've seen children buckle under the pressure of preserving a parent's legacy, trying to meet standards they never agreed to, carrying guilt for not upholding traditions they never wanted. I've seen spouses keep rooms frozen in time for years, afraid that moving a single object would be a betrayal. Grief becomes a museum, and the living become its curators. I don't want my absence to turn someone's life into an exhibit. I don't want anyone tiptoeing through memories of me like they're walking on sacred ground. If anything, I want the opposite. I want people to move freely, to open the windows wide, to let the wind cut through the rooms and sweep out the dust without hesitation. When I say I don't want to leave a trace, people assume I'm rejecting connection. But it's not that. I've had connection, Real, steady, ordinary connection. And it was enough. It didn't need to be frozen in amber to have meaning. The moment was the meaning. The presence was the meaning. And presence doesn't need preservation. It needs participation, attention, a willingness to be there while the moment is alive. After that, it can go. It should go. Not because it stopped mattering, but because it already mattered in its own time. Maybe it sounds cold to say I don't want a future shaped by my shadow. But shadows distort things. They stretch and shrink depending on the angle of the light. I don't want that. I want clarity. I want to be here as long as I'm here and gone when I'm gone. No half-life of memory, no version of me lingering in someone's head like an obligation. There's a certain dignity in being fully temporary, a certain honesty. And if someone thinks of me someday, briefly, unexpectedly, I hope it's not because they're trying to keep me alive, but because they simply stumbled across a moment we once shared. A real moment, unpolished. Maybe the sound of a chair being pushed back. Maybe the smell of rain on pavement. Maybe a sentence I said that wasn't profound, just true. And then I hope the thought passes, gently, the way thoughts are meant to. No narrative, no weight, just a flicker of something that was once real. That to me is enough, more than enough. To be a moment, not a monument. I'm not saying any of this because I think it will change how someone lives, or how someone grieves, or how the world arranges itself after I'm gone. I'm saying it because this is the one thing I've held back the longest. The truth that never fit into conversation. The truth that always felt too bare to share. I don't want to be carried forward. I don't want my name to survive me. I don't want a story told in my honor or a sentence carved in stone. I don't want to be the person someone quotes when they need guidance, or the memory someone clings to because letting go feels like betrayal. I don't want to linger anywhere I no longer exist. I want life to close around my absence as naturally as it did around my presence, quietly, without resistance, without a script. And if that sounds harsh, let it be harsh. I'm done softening the way I speak so people can swallow it more easily. This is the truth, stripped of ceremony. I don't want to be remembered. I don't want to be kept. I don't want to be transformed into something comforting. When the last breath leaves me, I want that to be the end of my story, not the beginning of a myth built out of nostalgia and guesswork. If someone thinks of me years later, I want it to feel like an accidental ripple, not a duty. A small passing recognition that something once existed here and then moved on. I'm not asking for understanding. I'm not asking for agreement. I'm not asking for anything at all. I just needed to say it out loud once, so it wouldn't follow me into whatever comes next. This is the whole of it, the final truth I have to offer. I don't want to leave a legacy. I don't want to leave a trace. I want the world to keep spinning unbothered by my absence, untouched by my memory. If you're still here listening to this, then something in you shifted, even if you don't admit it. And that's fine. Let it shift. Let it pass. Let it dissolve. The moment will end, just like everything else. That's all it was ever meant to do.